Well, thanks so much for joining me today.
Yeah, it's exciting. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so I'd love for you, you're obviously the expert of yourself. I'd love for you to give us a great introduction about who you are, where you dance, and maybe even dive into your journey as starting from a pre-professional dancer to where you're at now.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm originally from New Jersey and I'm an East Coast gal. So I I trained and studied over there in New Jersey. I did like Radio City Christmas Spectacular. I also studied at School of American Ballet, one of the two summers actually, and then I was asked to stay, and I graduated from the school. And I was asked during my last year as a student to join Pacific Northwest Ballet by Peter. And I with the company now for 10 years. So I've lived in Seattle for 10 years now. And I recently just got promoted to principal of last year in November, or sorry, of this year of November. So yeah, I basically it's been really cool to be living in Seattle now for 10 years, and now being called a Seattleite is very weird, but yeah, I've been enjoying my time here with this company, and they've become my second home.
Yeah, so how old were you when you moved out west?
I was 17. So I, Peter, I didn't really know the schedule of PMB and how it worked. And so I was a PD for like 2 months, a professional division
Hmm.
student, just to adapt to their work schedule and to also see what's going on because I kind of transitioned pretty quickly. And so after that, I became an apprentice. And like during that cracker season, I did perform with the company as a student for a little bit,
Hmm.
and then yeah, joined the company shortly after.
Yeah, it must have definitely been a challenge though to
Hmm.
move across the country at 17 years old. Did you, when you lived in Jersey, did you go to regular academic school or were you more in the pre-professional full-time track at SAB?
So I was homeschooled for high school.
Hmm.
I commuted back and forth by
Hmm.
myself from New Jersey to New York. I took a bus and then the subway, and
Yeah.
yeah, that was quite a learning and maturing process. So I felt like I
Yeah.
definitely grew up pretty quickly. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was pretty wild moving from East Coast to West Coast because I'm not super familiar, or at the time I wasn't familiar with what Seattle as a city was, let alone
Hmm.
Washington State. And so it was all very exciting and new and scary, of course, but I felt like I was in a really comfortable place and a comfortable situation with the company, joining a company like this. And but yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And one thing that a lot of dancers struggle with when they are moving away from home, especially for the first time at a younger age,
Mhm.
it's how to fuel their bodies. So I'm
Mhm.
curious from you, how was that learning curve? Did you have resources? Did you feel like you learned when you were back living at home in New Jersey and you
Mhm.
kind of had tools when you went? How did that go?
It was definitely like a shock to the system, like
Hmm.
because for me at least growing up, I had that normality of like coming home and not living in the dorms and having a cafeteria.
Sure.
I actually had like home cooked meals, and my grandma is living with us still, and she would also cook home meals. So I was so used to that aspect and that time to have like family time while we're eating. And when I moved here, I was like, oh no, like what do I do? And so of course, like when you're young, you go to the supermarket, you go wild and try like all these things, try to start cooking first or even takeout. I mean, I'm still
Hmm.
guilty of that. Um, so I guess that was like for me, it was quite shocking, and I'm still learning till this day. But
Hmm.
um, yeah, I mean, it was at first I was like, yeah, I get to like buy whatever, and then as I've gotten older, I was like, okay, maybe I shouldn't just buy whatever. I need to like plan my meals a little bit better.
Yeah, totally.
Uh-huh.
And there's two aspects of that that I want to kind of break down a little bit. The first is I love hearing that you had this experience growing up of having like your grandmother cook home cooked meals for you. I think that's so nice and beautiful. And it really, probably as a young dancer, did a lot to build an experience around food
Mm-hmm.
and not make it where food, I'm sure you were introduced, even in your training, maybe introduced the idea of dancers not eating
Mm-hmm.
appropriately, or
Totally.
perhaps using food as a tool to um, whatever change or affect their bodies. And it seems like you were able to have this like footing at
Mm-hmm.
home where food was more of an experience for you. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's so important for a lot of dancers to connect back at with food when it comes to food.
Totally. And it keeps you like sane as well, in the sense that like,
Hmm.
dance is ballet, and dance is like this whole complicated world, and coming back to like reality in a way of where you are human, and you are eating with your family and enjoying that moment and enjoying being in the presence of food and with family. So I mean, for my situation, I was super grateful that I got to do that. And I do thank my parents for being like, you don't need to go to the dorms, even though I was like, I
Hmm.
really want to like spend time with my friends. But um, it really shaped how I view things now. And
Hmm.
I see that now as I'm older versus when I was younger. Like, well, I want to do this and want to do that. So, parents doing their job,
Yeah.
they did really well.
Yeah. Yeah, really lucky too, again, because
Hmm.
you were in a pretty high intense environment at a
Yes.
young age
Yeah.
when you were studying dance. So how are
Hmm.
you able to combat against the potential of messaging around like, I shouldn't be eating this, or should I
Right.
be,
Right.
eating different types of foods,
Hmm.
whatever it might be?
Yeah. I mean, during the time where I was, my class especially, like we were all very close. And,
Hmm.
but of course, the ballet world is super competitive. We all wanted,
Yeah.
the same thing. And that message for sure, like, was around. But then it's like you just don't feel good too.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, your body's also changing at that time of age of those teen years, those crucial years. So
Yeah.
it's like you feel your hormones changing, you feel like you're not happy, you're not good. And again, grateful that I can go home to have parents who are like, that's not good to do to yourself.
Yeah.
And I mean, it takes a lot to say. I can say that now confidently, but at the time, of course, like I don't want to say it was normal to give into the pressure, but it was just easy to.
I often say dieting is not just normalized in dance culture, it's
Hmm.
normalized in like the culture at large, right?
Totally, yeah.
And it's just that dancers are more vulnerable to the pressures. And I think that's probably what you and like other dancers would feel in a
Hmm.
more high intense environment. It's just that high level of vulnerability.
Hmm.
But what is so interesting about your story is that you stepped away from it every evening, you went
Hmm.
back home, and you had that grounding,
Hmm.
those right from your parents,
Hmm.
which is amazing. And like I said, what I want dancers to know is that food should be an experience.
Hmm.
And at the end of the day, even like you said, maybe turning to quote unquote restrictive behaviors long term,
Hmm.
the dancer is not going to feel great, right?
Right.
Because restrictive dieting is going to impede upon like your energy levels and increase your risk to injury and so
Hmm.
forth. So I
Hmm.
think it's so interesting that you point that out.
Oh yeah, and it definitely, even like now as a professional dancer, it definitely, I feel that if I don't get enough protein, or if I don't get enough carbs, or it's super crucial for your craft. Like, your body is
Yeah.
your instrument, your tool, and so you need to nourish that too, and see it as that as well. So um, I think people, or dancers, or everybody should really appreciate yourself in that sense.
Yeah.
Hmm.
When you moved out west and you said that there was a time where you perhaps really pinpointed that you had to maybe spend a little bit more of a focus on how you were fueling your body.
Mm-hmm.
This is really important because, as dancers, we are athletes, and it's
Mm-hmm.
important, like you said, to make sure you're giving your body those exact tools. So,
Mm-hmm.
talk to us a little bit about maybe what you felt or how that transition happened when you were like, okay, maybe I need to put a little bit more thought into this as an athlete.
Yeah, totally. Like, so I mean, when you first join a company too, it's all like this new freshness, excitement, and of living one by yourself or living with a roommate, and doing this like 6 hour day schedule. And I think that's when it really hit me was seeing or doing a 6 hour day, 5 days a week, or plus performances. I couldn't like keep up with like,
Mm,
my energy levels. And I was like, okay, Angelica, you need to eat more snacks throughout the day. You need to, again, nourish yourself and make sure that you're getting the right meals throughout the day, especially during performance, because you don't want to burn out during your show. And so, like, especially Nutcracker, my first Nutcracker, and how we do it here, I was like, I can't not go a day
mm-hmm.
without having like 2 to 3 snacks or more, and
Sure.
now I'm like, I always have food in my locker, or I have food in my dance bag, or even my purse, like a bar or something, because it's just like we're so in tune with our bodies, and we know when we don't feel good, and when we don't feel good, it doesn't help with our workplace, it doesn't help with our mindset. And so, like, I was like, if you're feeling hungry, that makes you upset. So you better have some sugar or something to like keep it going and feel that you're working properly in your rehearsal, so you don't get hurt either, like what you were
Yeah.
talking about. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, there's such an important intersection between our intuition and then also
Hmm.
having that proactive approach, which is exactly what you're doing in the sense of
Hmm.
you are able to feel when you need to have that boost in energy or that
Hmm.
energy pickup. And at the
Hmm.
same time, you're planning ahead, making sure that you have the snacks and the tools needed so that when that drop in energy comes, you're you're set, you know what I mean? You're prepped,
Yeah.
whether it's like in
You're
your
not
locker
good.
or your purse, like you.
Yeah.
Yes, so there's this interesting intersection between understanding your intuition but also having a very proactive approach, really being on top of making sure you're refueling and then also making sure you're optimizing like recovery time, so
Hmm.
after a class or after a performance.
Hmm. And I mean, like, it took some time to figure that out too, of like not just me not feeling good, but I was fortunate to have like peers that are principal dancers who are like, you just watch and you learn how they like have snacks in their lockers, how they have things and with them at all times, how they prepare themselves and nurture themselves throughout the day. And so you kind of you watch and learn, and you apply what you think is beneficial to you and see if that works for you. So that also helped me a lot to look around and see how other dancers are doing their day, and maybe that little thing can help benefit you too.
Sure, sure.
Hmm.
And let's talk a little bit about like body image. A
Hmm.
lot of dancers, unfortunately, we've got this pressure in our art about body aesthetics, and it really can place a lot of unnecessary stress on a lot of the younger dancers who are still in school. And I'm
Hmm.
curious if you have any words of wisdom, any advice for younger dancers who are really on this path, want to get into a company, but
Hmm.
struggling with the idea of body aesthetics.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely had my fair share of that, especially in the environment of one of the prestigious ballet schools in our country. And so it
Sure.
just, uh, it's easier to say now, but during at that time, it was so hard because you,
Yeah.
again, like you want to move forward and you want that contract, you want that job, you want that role. And it's, for me personally too, it's like I am such a different dancer, a different human as an appearance as well. So I had like that on top of like trying to fit in this mold of what a traditional ballerina should look like, versus to what how beautiful you are as a dancer as is, with that strength and
Yeah.
with that beauty. And so I mean, like for me, I guess my advice for my younger self, or for like younger dancers out there, is just it's really hard to say that and to apply it, but it's day by day kind of thing, is to really appreciate your flaws, your gifts, because those are what make you different and beautiful as an individual. And my dad would always say it's like we're all like horses in a race, kind of, that we put our blinders on, and you just like you focus on your one path and try not to see anyone else's, because it's for you at the end of the day. It's
Hmm.
not about your peers and what they're doing with your life, because their lives, I'm sorry, and your life is on your way and on your trajectory. So I've always applied that, and I thought that was um, a good way to focus too, and have that with me.
I love that. I absolutely
Hmm.
love that. I've never heard that before. And I think it's such a great example of maintaining focus on your own trajectory, your own
Hmm.
path. I love the horses and the
Yeah,
blinders. I
the horse
love that.
blinders.
That's super
Yeah,
helpful.
yeah.
Yeah, I love
Hmm.
that. Let's talk a little bit about COVID-19. It
Yes.
presented a ton of challenges for dancers. It also presented maybe some opportunities. I'm curious to hear from you what you may have like walked away from, even though the pandemic's not over, but like what maybe blossomed or what was challenging.
I mean, definitely what was challenging, just like your routine is completely gone. It
Yeah.
was out of your control. And I think
Hmm.
a lot of dancers in our community were so about our routine and controlling what we can in our careers. And I think for myself and a lot of my peers that I know, it was really hard for that to all of a sudden just be gone. And let alone that's gone, is maintaining what you've been working for how many years. And that was also shocking. Like I tried everything. I tried workouts at home, and like I made a Marley floor for my small living room, and um, try to dance as much as I can. But I mean, what I've learned throughout COVID-19 is that, or throughout just this time in general, is like to really appreciate the time that you have with people, and like also take care of yourselves, like your mental state, because this really took a toll on everybody around the world, and it still is. So
Mhm.
I really learned how to kind of accept that, and cry if you have to cry, and have a moment to yourself, and don't like don't dwell on it so much, because to know that everyone here right now is dealing with somewhat similar, issues, that helps too, is that everybody is dealing with it. And yeah, I tried to take those moments and kind of learn how to accept, because we're so used to like pushing through and making it work. But like if something's not working, like you out of your control, you kind of have to accept that. So I've learned that throughout my time.
Yeah,
I'm still learning.
so true.
Yeah.
Yeah, so true, and so hard for dancers to let go of
Hmm.
control.
Yes.
But on that note, how are you able to like maintain balance among needing to be so focused on our art?
Yeah. I mean, when I was younger, or like just had been working in the company, I was always on the go, 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 go. And I never really um, applied the balance. I just let it kind of happen, with stress, with anxiety, and being so burnt out kind of in it, that now I feel like benefit of what COVID has done is made me realize what to like separate things from each other, and to be like, okay, well, that's that, and that's that. And so I really now take the time for myself to like, Angelica, you need to breathe, just let it happen, take a moment for yourself, be proud that you did that, and then go back to work too, as a separate entity. Um, so I think that's how I'm figuring out the balance, and that's it's been beneficial to kind of sit and take step back and actually figure out what was happening, or what you've been missing, to take care of yourself for like how many years you worked, for me at least, with P&B.
Yeah, I mean, from what it sounds like, you're taking a step back and you're assessing perspective.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
totally,
Like
yeah.
perspective of where you're at now, where you've come, how far you've come,
Mhm.
what the future might look like. And I think that's really awesome.
Mhm.
And an important aspect, even for younger dancers out there to hear, is just like taking a step back and
Mhm.
reassessing what the perspective is of what you're doing right now. We can get so hung up and focused. This happens
Mhm.
just in class. Like if you're hung up on doing, let's say,
Totally.
whatever, you know, when you're like in the zone of like pirouettes and you cannot
Mhm.
get a good pirouette, you know what I mean? Because
Totally. Yeah.
you're hyper focused on it. You got to like take a step back and just take a
Mhm.
breather
Yeah.
and then get
And
back into it.
totally, and like be like, okay, well that's okay. Like I have another
Yeah.
day, another class, and I mean, that's a huge, huge statement. And that's something that you should be really like proud to even like acknowledge. And then like that's how we can be able to move forward in a healthier way instead of just being so like in it and like so frustrated because I realize being
Yeah.
so frustrated doesn't really do much sometimes.
Gets us
Um,
nowhere.
it gets us nowhere. So that's also something that I'm still applying and still learning, especially coming back to the studios and working
Hmm.
again, to now physically apply those at work. It's been quite an interesting couple months.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's what's also interesting is like that frustration, it doesn't help in the moment, but what's
Hmm.
important is like to feel it
Hmm.
and let it happen.
Hmm.
And that's when you kind of have to like take the step back because you can't kind of just push it away.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah. Hmm.
And that taking that break,
Hmm.
whether it's a day, whether it's an hour, whether it's, you know, maybe like needing to take a holiday if you can, then
Hmm.
I think that's important as well.
Hmm. Agreed.
So, just a fun little question. Any pre-performance ritual that you like?
Um, I always go, there's like a grocery store by the theater, and I always get like a little latte just for like caffeine and
Yeah,
energy. And then I get like a little
absolutely.
treat to go
Mm-hmm.
inside next to it. Sometimes I have half before the show.
Hmm.
Depends when I'll be dancing, and then I'll have half after to be like, oh, you just did it. So I always do
Yeah,
that for opening night at least. To
I
like,
love that.
yeah, and it could be any treat. I mean, sometimes I just eat it before the show, but
Yeah.
it's something to like have a moment before I like put my makeup on, get into this like intense, start before and the stressful time that I'm like enjoying a vanilla latte with like a cookie or a cupcake or some kind of treat to
Mm-hmm.
go and coincide with that. So, um, yeah, I actually really cherish that moment, especially that now, like, I don't really have a dressing roommate with me. So, that's
Sure.
like me time before
Yeah, I
the
love
stress.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great because it's like giving you this pleasant experience
Hmm.
and it's also giving you some energy. It's giving you sugar,
Totally.
it's giving you some caffeine, and that's like
Yeah.
setting you up to get on
Yeah.
stage.
All of like the good vibes. I keep thinking of that too. I'm like, baked goods, yummy. Like
Yes.
it just feels like someone's with you in the room, I guess, when I was like getting ready. So Um,
Yeah.
I tend to do that, especially during COVID or when we were having our digital season. I would get my coffee if I'm at the theater and like have some kind of like treat to be with me.
I love that.
Yeah.
So my final question
Hmm.
is how would you define what it means to be the healthy dancer?
Oh, that's a
It's a loaded
that's a
question.
loaded question. I think for me, I mean, we talked about balance. I'm still working on that. I think that definitely is a huge part of being an overall healthy dancer is to um, try to balance your personal life and to balance the dance life too in the best positive way. I guess I to take those little moments and appreciate them, and especially in the dance world of how stressful it is, and it gets a little crazy sometimes, and just like take like the good moments and like cherish those. And I know there's a lot that's going on during like opening night or during dress rehearsal and all of this stuff. But I tried to take like the really good moments of like someone was like, wow, that was really beautiful. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll take that. And to like have that in the dance pocket and then like have some fun stuff in my personal life too. So it's like that kind of balance I'm still trying to figure out, but I think that overall makes you feel healthier in the long term. I think.
Yeah, I think so just as much. I mean, making time and knowing, and this is what I want younger dancers to hear, is that you can have experiences out of the
Hmm.
studio, and
And
you
as
should
you
have experiences
should,
out.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Yeah,
Because
you'll bring that to the stage.
yeah, and sometimes there's a lot, like what we were saying, there's a lot of things that are out of our control that you never know, like if dance would be, dance is not forever. Ballet's not forever
Mm.
for everyone's career, and it, I'm also learning that like I can have a personal life and enjoy like having getting married or starting a family or starting life
Yeah.
in that sense because that's also important too. You don't want to push that side of yourself away because ballet's ballet is everything, but at the same time it's not. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's a
That was
good question.
wonderful. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. You answered it beautifully,
Oh,
and like
thanks.
this was so helpful. I'm so appreciative that you came to chat with us
Oh
today.
yeah, I enjoyed this. So thank you for asking me.
Of course. Well, let's be in touch and we'll talk
Yes,
soon.
yes. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.